Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EAMC podcast. This is your all-access pass to go backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live entertainment industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to some of our favorite people as we dive deep into the world of live touring shows and the venues that host them.
Today's adventure takes us to Nashville, where we check in with the marketing strategy manager for Outback Presents, Kevin Kennedy. How you doing?
I'm awesome, guys. How are you?
Good. You and I have something in common right off the bat. I want to get this out of the way. We were both in the musical Oklahoma.
What?
I did it twice.
You did it twice. I only did it once. Mine was in high school, and I was just a background dancer. But I'm guessing you had a bigger role.
Well, in high school, I did it in like ninth grade. I played the role of Judd Fry. And I think it was kind of around where my voice was changing. Very masculine Judd Fry. And then I did it professionally as my first professional production at Art Park in Lewiston, New York, right by Niagara Falls. And I played a dancing cowboy. It was awesome.
Yes, I've been the dancing cowboy myself. So Kevin, is one of my favorite people that I've gotten to know in this business recently, and has some great stories. We're excited to talk with him today. But let's talk to you right off the bat about your current role. Tell us about, for the people who are listening that maybe don't know, tell us about Outback Presents and your position there.
Yeah, so I'm a marketing strategy manager at Outback Presents, a promoter. It's the leading independent promoter in the business right now. I think number 3 promoter as well, top 3. It's growing so fast, just with the tours that are coming out. We just announced the Kid Leroy college tour that's going out. Everybody here is awesome, amazing. It's a big family. I think I started here about 2 years ago, and I think there were like 30, 40 people, and now it's grown over 100 people in 2 years. Wow. And it just keeps growing, always looking for good people. That's what I love about Outback is we're surrounded by good people. So if you're a good person, throw in your resume.
And if you're a bad person,
go to hell.
Throw it to us anyways, but we'll toss it away.
Yeah, and what's your role there? What is a marketing strategy manager? What is that? What is day to day for you?
So day to day, I'm on the comedy. So I lean on a lot of comedians. Some of the comedians, Taylor Tomlinson, David Spade, Rob Schneider, Leanne Morgan. So a lot of the comedians that go to and play theaters around the US and Canada. So my job is to work with the venues and put up all these shows, buy all the marketing, right? Buy the TV spots, give Facebook way too much money, and just get the word out and fill the seats and make it a good night for everybody. Make it a good night for the comedians, make it a good night for the fans that are attending. And it's really cool because prior to this, I was at a venue. I was at KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York. And I worked at KeyBank Center, Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, and then oversaw the marketing for live events at the Bills Stadium, which is now called Highmark Stadium. I did 3 venues, and I worked with the promoters there. So it's really cool to be on this side and learning a whole new aspect of the industry here the last 2 years. Every day I'm challenged here, and it's really cool. Love it.
With you focusing on comedy, like we just had a guest on where, he was saying that it's just growing faster than anything. And it's amazing. And there's just so many comedy bookings, like way more than they've ever had. I mean, is that something that you've seen even since you've been there, or is it something that you like the promoter Outback is staffing up more because it's just like all the comedians are going out and hitting the roads? It definitely seems like more than I've ever seen. comedians that might be like, oh, we'll just do a couple dates here or there in the past are now like doing full-fledged tours. And there's so much more structure, I think, to it than just like hitting a couple comedy clubs.
Yeah, it's incredible, some of these artists, and just watching their careers. Taylor Tomlinson, I listened to Rick's episode on Venueland, and he mentioned Taylor Tomlinson, which is my first tour. It's I came here to Outback. It was my first show. It was her first tour outside of a club, so it was her first theater tour, and we started in small theaters that fit about 1,000 people. And that was September 2021. And now she just did 3 nights at the Chicago Theater. This weekend, she's doing 4 shows in Boston, all sold out, not a single seat available. 5 shows in Dallas. We're just putting up a 5th show in Dallas. It's incredible to see her career just blow up. And
sure.
I think it helped. Netflix has a huge platform for stand-up comedy. And I think, if a comedian gets on, and does a special and it's well received, it just blows up. And it's incredible to see. And it's so cool because it was my first tour, her first tour. And here we are 2 years later. And just to see her career blow up is amazing.
I think that's a great point you bring up about the advent of Netflix, because I think you probably can trace a lot back to that. Before you had so many of these streaming platforms where a lot more people can get specials, I think the gate behind those specials was a lot thicker. And okay, you want to be on Comedy
Central. That HBO special
was
tough, right?
Yeah. Or HBO, that's a finite amount of people. So you're looking at like, a Jerry Seinfeld level person. So I think, that was a challenge, because how are people going to know your material? It's not like musicians where they're going to, bop their head to you in the car and they're going to like listen. People don't generally listen to comedy albums as much. But I think having that now, across so many different streaming platforms, and Netflix has really leaned into it. It's like created this parity amongst the genre where I think a lot more people are able to get their foot in the door and get recognized, which I love.
Oh, absolutely. I think probably before that and before those streaming platforms, you just relied on touring and just people recommending you, right? And then waiting to come back, and then hopefully more people see you, which still is that way. But I think Netflix helps where people talk about it and they see that they're coming. And I think it maybe fast tracks the artist's career a little bit.
Yeah.
Kevin, let's get into the weeds a little bit, because I'm intrigued by something you said about giving too much money to Facebook and the metaverse, right? We're all locked into the world of meta. So I'm just curious, kind of your current philosophy on where we're all dealing with limited ad budgets, right? And and for some of these shows, the budgets are a little smaller than. So when we're tight, where are the important places for you to be? What do you see that's working for you, and what have you tried that just you haven't seen much success with?
I mean, I think it depends on the artist on what is going to work, but every campaign we do is digital. I mean, you always do digital. You always put on Facebook, because we can target those artist fans. We get access to the artist Facebook page and Instagram. Hopefully they have it and it's all set up and connected correctly. We can target those fans. And so, if I follow an artist on my phone, I pick it up and I see that they're coming to my town, right? I get that ad. So it's so important for every artist. But, there's other artists where, is TV right? Do we have the budget? Is radio right? I think the challenge in comedy is trying to get people, especially that don't know the artist, right? So you have to have the assets to educate fans of comedy on who the artist is. So is TV right for comedy? Just depends on the comedian. And but Meta sure is getting a lot of money.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Hey, what do you like about, obviously we'll talk about Buffalo here a little bit more, but what do you like about living and working in Nashville?
Oh man, I lived in Buffalo for 38 years of my life. And when I lost my job at the pandemic, I knew I wanted to go somewhere else. I didn't want to live my life without seeing outside of Buffalo. So this job opportunity happened, and it's between here and Florida. I was actually looking at another job in Florida, and I don't love the sun. And I mean, I love the sun. I wish the sun was out today. But the heat, and like, although we get it here, we get the heat here, but there's something fun about Nashville. And I came here 6 years ago now, I think maybe 2014, 8 years ago now, on a trip. And I was here for 4 days, and I was just like, wow, this is so cool, and I sat on Broadway, and that's all we did, right? And it was just so cool. But moving here, just seeing outside of Broadway too, like when I have visitors, I'm like, can we not do Broadway? Can I show you like the actual cool suburbs and the cool local places here that we have? There's something to do every day. Just a couple nights ago, I got to go to a private Dan and Shay concert that, might happen in Buffalo, but there's just something really cool about going and the artists being from here and going home that night to their family and their kids. And it's just, there's never ending live entertainment here.
Music just permeates the city, which, I know. And I know that you personally, one of the things that I think is very cool about you is, not only do you, live and breathe this during the day, but you love to consume the live entertainment scene at night and go out and see bands and live shows.
I sure do. It's pretty much all I do. And there's something for, there's theater, there's live entertainment, there's concerts. It's been really cool. I've seen a lot of really cool things here. And it's really cool because like when I first came here, and it'd be like a Friday working in the office, and I'd go out for lunch, and you see all the visitors. It's on Thursdays during heavy visiting season. The visitors just arriving, and you'd be working and you'd be stressed, and then you go out for lunch, and you just see everybody's so happy because they're here visiting. They're on the vacation of their lifetime. And it's like, wow, I live here. That's really cool. And it puts you in a good, like, it's like, man, they're happy. I'm happy. It's just really cool. It's just, and just kind of puts things into perspective. And it's like, you know what? These people are like here trying to have their vacation of a lifetime. And like, I live here, and it's really cool, and puts you in a good mood.
That sounds like this comparison I heard recently where like there's no one sad at Disneyland because everyone goes to Disneyland or Disney World. And part of it too is that you have this financial investment. Like and it's the same with Nashville. I'm sure you're like, I booked a hotel. I'm going here to have fun. Like you're coming in with the expectation, like it's going to be fun. I'm going to make it fun. So I'm sure like everyone you see is just like wide grins, like let's have a blast. We're having the best time because we have to, that's why we did this.
And it's really weird, especially like those people are having fun. I get a little FOMO, jealous. I'm like, oh, yeah. I go back to work for 5 more hours. Y'all have fun.
Y'all keep going.
Keep going.
So I was going to ask, you obviously talked about Buffalo, right? So let's take it back, to your days. You're at the University of Buffalo. You're getting your Bachelor of Fine Arts there. What does Kevin Kennedy think he's going to do with his life at that time?
Oof. Kevin still doesn't know what he's going to do with his life.
Yeah.
In Buffalo, I started in live theater. It's really weird how I got into the business, right? Like I was hanging out with a friend in 7th grade, and they were on stage crew. And they're like, hey, you should join stage crew. I'm like, what's that? And in 7th grade, I joined stage crew. I hated it. I was like, I don't want to work. I gotta pull these. What are these things I gotta pull? Like it's like exercising. I was like, I don't want to do this. And I was like, that's really cool. Like those people on stage are doing that, and like that's really cool. So the next year I tried out and I got into the show. And so I got to do that part of the business, right? And I was like, this is really neat. And so that's kind of how I got started in performing. And then a friend of mine, actually a cousin of mine, was like, hey, I work at Shay's Performing Arts Center, which is the touring theater in Buffalo. I was like, oh, I wanna work there. And she's like, well, you can volunteer. I was 15. And so I volunteered in the gift shop, and I got to go in and, just walk in and see some shows. And I wanted to volunteer every single night. And I did. And usually when somebody will just come in, volunteer for one night, go see the show, come out, I just wanted to be there and be involved. And so finally I turned 16. They're like, well, you're working more than most of the people here. So they hired. And so that was my first job in the industry, was working in the ticket office at Shay's. And I worked there for 25 years part-time until I moved here. Or 22 years, whatever it was, until I moved to Nashville. And when I told them I was moving to Nashville, I said, if you're going to, I'm not quitting. I said, I can't quit. I can never quit Shay's. I said, if you're going to take me off of payroll, do not tell me. I still and always work there. So I always joke around, I'll go back there. I said, I'll work one night, just because that's my family, that's my home. And I always make a point to go there just to pop in and say hi real quick, or anytime I'm home, because that's where I grew up. That's how I got involved in the industry. And it's awesome. I love it there.
That's so cool. And again, it's so many times we hear these stories on this podcast about how people got into the industry, and everyone's a little bit different, but they all kind of have that core of, I got there, I fell in love with it, and I did everything possible to become part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I went to school in Buffalo, at University of Buffalo, for my Bachelor of Fine Arts. And to answer your question, earlier question, I wanted to do theater, but like, I knew there were other aspects of the industry that I could be involved in. So after I graduated from, also when I was at Shay's, I used to meet the company managers of the shows, and I would, meet some of the actors, and I would learn the other part of the business. I would meet the stage managers, and the stage managers saw that I was a young, hungry, interested person. And a couple times the stage managers invited me to go backstage of these shows and sit there at their console and watch what they do. And so I got interested in that. So after college, I went out and I toured with the Radio City Rockettes. I was not a Rockette.
I was going to say, were you dancing?
Did you get the kicks going? I mean, you had to work on your kick, right?
There is a funny story. They did invite me as a joke. Can't believe I'm going to tell you this story. As a joke, they're like, do you want to be in the nativity scene at the end of the show? This beautiful nativity scene with these, the three wise men and the camels and the donkeys and whatever animals we had and the sheep. And it's one of the most beautiful moments of the show, right? This live nativity scene. And they're like, do you want to be in it? I go, yeah. And so they dressed me up as whatever in this outfit. This head wrap and this long gown. They're like, but we're not going to tell anybody in the show that you're going to be in it. So I was up on the rock. They call it the rock, next to Mary and Joseph. There I was, just standing there, and all the wise men are coming up, bearing the gifts, and it's a beautiful moment. And there I was, just standing there. They're like, you can't laugh. They're like,
right.
You cannot laugh. I'm like, because my face was shown to the audience and everything. I was like, I won't laugh. I'm an actor. I can do this. But the funny thing is people, like, as the wise men come up from the audience and everybody's bringing the gifts up, they're like, looking at, like, is that our assistant company manager. And it was so funny just seeing their faces, and then even afterwards they'd be like, why are you dressed like that? I was like, I was on the rock. Did you not see me? Like, pay attention here. I know it's your 8th show.
You're the 4th wise man, Kevin. You forgot your present at home.
Oh, that was so fun. That was a great story.
That's great. So, obviously, a lot of fun in theater, and working, through the years there, but something gets you involved with the NHL, and you end up working with the Buffalo Sabres.
I sure did. So everything comes back to Shays. I was working at Shays, and I came back from the Rockettes, and I was like, man, I need a full-time job. And I asked somebody that worked at Shays part-time with me, worked part-time at the arena. And they're like, yeah, I'll give them your resume. And they hired me part-time. And I was there for maybe like 2 months. And then they hired me full-time. And so I worked for the Sabres in the ticket office for seven years. And then the girl, Tracy, who was the arena marketing manager at the time, was going on maternity leave. And the booker of the arena was like, I like Kevin. I want him to fill in when she's on maternity leave. And so they talked to me about it, and she went on maternity leave, and I learned this whole new role in this industry of marketing manager of live events at the arena. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then they were like, yeah, we'll do gift presentations, trade photos. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And so they trained me with the gift presentation trade photo with Josh Groban, who I love. Yeah, and I just learned. And then she came back from maternity leave, and I was like, I'm done in this ticket office. She needs help. I'm like, she needs some help. They need to hire me. And so I wrote this big email to her, to the booker, and I was like, Jen, I know what she does, and she really needs an assistant. She needs somebody there with her to take on some more shows and this and that. She goes, no, but we'll keep you in mind some other day.
What?
I was like, so then I went back to the ticket office, and sure enough, she came up to me maybe a year later and was like, Tracy's leaving, are you interested? And then I left the ticket office, and I learned this role of marketing manager. And then the company continued to grow, and I took on Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, and then the stadium live events, and it was really cool. So that's how I got into marketing. Yeah,
so that's your time with PSE, right? Tell us about that organization.
Yeah, so PSE. So when I was at the Sabres, Terry and Kim Pagula took over the Buffalo Sabres. They bought the Sabres, and it was a company of 100 people. And then they bought the Bills, and then they decided to start this umbrella company, Pagula Sports and Entertainment, PSE, and they kind of put everything, the Bills, the Sabres, the Amerks. They have a record label here in Nashville. It's all under this PSE umbrella of all their entities. So then I became the live events marketing manager of PSE, which included Blue Cross, the stadium, and the Sabres, the KeyBank Center. So it was cool. It was, then I got to learn how to market events in a city I didn't know, Blue Cross Arena, right? So that's kind of helping me here now, marketing shows in places I've never been to.
Yeah, sure.
As a small sidebar, I have to interrupt because I know this is an audio only podcast, but I feel like we're robbing people from how expressive you are. Because if you all could see Kevin as he's telling these stories, he's like you can tell you're in theater because your face has got all these faces. You're using your hands a lot. And so it's like there's these pauses, or it might seem like there's these pauses. It's actually just Dave and I reacting to Kevin's performance of his career.
Well, now you tell me it's audio only. I wouldn't have showered or done my hair. I almost got a haircut last night because I thought,
man.
Still looks good. So tell us about working the difference, and working in the theater side of things to working in the arena side of things. Was there some things that kind of transferred over and were similar? Is it just the size of the room? Obviously you're hitting all kinds of different venues. Was there much difference in those worlds?
To be honest, when we took over the stadium, no, there really was. They were all Live Nation shows, and Live Nation, they kind of handle their own marketing and just kind of the liaison, right? I only did one show at the stadium on the run too. It was incredible. So I really don't have too much experience to talk about, but Queen Bee pulled up in a golf cart and got off, right? This is actually very interesting because you know how we kind of like put artists, you look at artists, especially somebody of that size, and they're just bigger than life, and you forget that they're an actual human being, and they're just like larger than life.
For sure.
And I'll never forget Beyonce coming down in the golf cart. I was backstage at the time, just standing there waiting for the show to start, and the golf cart coming up and this woman getting off the back of the golf cart. I'm like, wait a minute. And I looked at the girl next to me. I go, was that her? She's like, that was Queen. And I couldn't believe it because she's such a tiny person. And
she feels like she's like 18 feet tall, right?
Yes. Yeah. And then I'm like, wait, she's 5'8"? Like, I couldn't believe it. And then it just puts it in perspective that they're human beings,
For sure. Speaking of being a human being, besides work, I know that you've got a pretty active life and you've kind of kept, the theater element going in your life. You still do a lot of live acting and even singing.
I sure do. So I joke around that I retired once I moved to Nashville. I used to do the anthems for the Sabres and the Buffalo Bandits, which is the NLL team. So actually when I kind of had to slow down on the theater stuff when I got into live events because I had to work events myself, right? But every once in a while, my former boss was very, very kind and allowed me to do certain shows as an actor and miss a couple nights. And we worked around it. I'm very supportive in that way. But it was cool, even getting to do the anthems kind of fed that need and that feed, right? Like that hungriness of wanting to perform.
Yeah.
Which I still have, right? And moving here, there's not a ton of local theater. If there is, it's, a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with non-paid theater. What am I trying to think of?
Community theater?
Community theater. Yeah, nothing wrong with community theater at all. But if I, just because I've, I went to school for it too, right? It needs to be worth it. I need to get paid for it. Anyway, there's not really a lot of professional theater here in Nashville. So I've been very lucky that I get to go back to Buffalo and every once in a while do the anthems. So that kind of feeds that performing. And I'll never forget, it was one of the greatest moments performing of my life was going back to do the anthem for the Bandits for the NLL finals last year. And I moved, right? So I hadn't done the anthems in quite some time. We had the pandemic and I did it for 10 years for the Bandits in an orange tuxedo. That's a whole nother story. And, people kind of, I did it every game, every single game. And then all of a sudden I wasn't there. And I'll never forget, we kept it a secret. They're like, Kevin, would you actually come back? Like I kept joking. I'm like, hey guys, just fly me back. I'll do the anthem for the playoffs. And then eventually they got to the finals and they're like, would you actually come back? I go, yes. If you put me on a plane to my hometown, I will go. And I did. And we kept it a secret, didn't mention it. And people were like on Twitter and Instagram, they're like, are you ever going to come back? Would you come back? I think even people even decided to do a GoFundMe to bring me back. I was like, yeah, start a GoFundMe and just put that money in my bank account.
Yes, please.
But the experience of going back there and walking out onto that field in front of 20,000 people and the reception that I got, I will never feel anything like that ever again. And especially like, being in Nashville and going about my business here, working at Outback and stressful life and not performing. And I had not performed, the pandemic, and even people here in Nashville, like, don't know that I perform. They're like, wow, you were right. You actually do.
The secret's out.
But the feeling of 20,000 people screaming, like, it's just, that'll never happen again. Like,
those are special moments.
Yeah, I can go back and, people will be excited to be there, but like, man, that was unbelievable. So it feeds that hungerness of performing when I get to go back and do the anthems. I did the Sabres game over the holiday break, and that was unbelievable as well, because it had been quite some time, maybe three years since I did the anthem for the Sabres. The Sabres is cool to do because it's more people see it, and I'll get text messages all around the US from people, hey, I saw you on ESPN. But it's really cool. And yeah.
Talking about Buffalo, obviously you're from there and you were talking about wanting to spread your wings a little bit and move to Nashville, but it does seem like obviously they've gone through a lot over the last, couple of years,
yeah.
But I think it has highlighted, as we see sometimes in communities, and it's unfortunate that it takes like a tragedy to do this, but how close the communities are, and how I just love like the connection and something that, even to your point, like around a sports team, or like people remembering you when you're singing the anthem, and then you go back and they're like, oh my God, it's Kevin and he's back. And like, we remember him singing every game, like something that seems like maybe a small thing, but is so important. And you're like one of theirs. You're one of the Buffaloes. I don't know what Buffaloians, Buffaloes. I don't know. But I think Buffalonians. Okay. I love that. But I think, what are the things that you do love about Buffalo? Like obviously you love returning, but I mean, is it just this like nice tight knit community, and it just feels like a really special place?
Well, you are going to get me emotional on this podcast.
That's my goal, Kevin. That's my goal.
There's nothing like it. I don't know what it is. I love it here. You are getting me emotional. Just thinking about home, right? That's my home. That's my friends. That's my family. And then, coming here and, whether good or bad, or, mostly when it's on national television and I see my home here on national TV, right? Unfortunately, lately it's been for the bad, but man, that is my home. That's, we go through those tragedies, we go through those snowstorms, we go through those 4 Super Bowl losses.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't explain it. I don't know. I think a lot has to do with going through tragedies together, right? Those 4, it's a tragedy in the sports, but those 4 like when I try to like tell people about like Buffalo's never won a championship. Like we have no experience of that, right? We get so close, and I don't know. That's my home.
So talk to us about that then, because, obviously you go from a place that you've, like you said, 38 years in Buffalo, right? So the pandemic hits, you lose your job, and walk us through then that decision to move to Nashville.
Oh man. Well, first of all, I lost my job, and I'm like, the hell am I going to do? I'm like,
yeah, I hear you, man.
And I put myself down, right? And I punched myself in the face. I'm like, you're worth nothing. You have no skills. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't get a job in marketing. Like, kids are gonna come out of college who are learning all those buzzwords. They're gonna get the job over you, like. And then Lori, my boss, who I met at EAMC, posted that they were looking for a marketing manager, and I was like, me. And one thing led to another, and they offered me the job, and I remembered coming here, visiting. I was like, yeah, that's a cool place. And I was here 3 weeks later, moving out of my home. Oof. Longest car ride. I was in tears the entire ride from Buffalo to Nashville.
Yeah.
Well, I stayed in Columbus, Dave, your little place there. On the way.
Place.
Stopped in Columbus, but from Buffalo to Columbus, I was in that U-Haul crying the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
Leaving home.
I can tell you have such passion for your city. That's understandable.
Yeah, it's the passion, and even flying home every time, But then I get here, I'm like, oh, this is cool. But it's so hard leaving home.
When you can always go back home, that's the thing too. I think that people realize is, whether it's for visits here or there, or if it's, 30 years from now and you're retiring, home is always home. So, I mean, I think you take a little bit with you wherever you go, and you can always return back to that comfort.
Exactly. Yeah. People still are like, are you going to come back? Here's this job. I'm like, no, I'm like, this is where I am right now. I'm with Outback learning a new skill, and it's not time to come home yet, but I'll be back at some point.
Well, Nashville is lucky to have you today, as is Outback. And, we love hearing about your adventures and getting to know you a little bit better as we talk through some things. Before we wrap things up here, I want to hit you with our Fast Five. It's 5 quick questions where you just get your instant response. First up, Kevin, what was your very first concert?
My first concert was America.
Oh, wow. How about your favorite concert?
My favorite concert. Oh, man. Are these supposed to be fast answers too?
Yes.
There's also America. No.
No. My favorite concert was, this is so... Sarah Brightman at the Ryman, and only because I got to promote it. Always wanted to see her live, and to see her at the Ryman as a promoter and as a fan was an experience I'll never forget. Close second, Jason Isbell at the Ryman.
Oh, that was recent, right?
Yeah.
Well, he does we do his residency every year. He does 5-6 shows in residency.
Very cool.
Sells out, and I'm seeing that with my brother. Unbelievable.
All right, here's a tough one for you. What's better, Nashville hot chicken or buffalo wings in Buffalo?
Buffalo wings, hands down. I can't tell you how many times I see people's Instagram stories of those wings, and I'm like, oh.
What's your favorite theater role? What's your favorite role you got to play in theater?
Oh my God. I forget the name of the role. I did Spamalot.
Nice.
Monty Python's Spamalot. I got to play I forget the name of the role, but anyway, it was the one in the tower.
Prince Herbert?
Prince Herbert, yes. I played Prince Herbert, and I got nominated for an acting award there for that. So that's up there as one of the best roles I've ever got to play.
Okay there, Kevin. Okay.
I lost though.
Nominated though. It's an honor just to be nominated.
Exactly.
Lastly, what is your theme song? So we have the Kevin Kennedy TV show where cameras follow you around through your whole life. What is the song that plays over the opening credits?
This is a hard question here. Probably "Work Hard, Play Harder" by Gretchen Wilson.
Very appropriate. Very appropriate. Kevin, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. If people want to find you on social or follow along with Outback Presents, give us your plugs.
Yeah, my Instagram's Kevin R. Kennedy. Outback's got socials out there. Outback Presents. You can search for it. Lots of great shows coming down here. I'm so excited to be here in Nashville with Outback, working with all the venues, everybody listening around the US and Canada. It's so cool to be on this side and working with venues.
Well, very cool. Hey, again, thank you so much for your time today. And a big thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do love your 5-star reviews. It helps others find us. And until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. Okay, everybody now. Oh, Oklahoma.
Winds come sweeping down the plains.
And the rain can sure smell sweet.
Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Arena Marketing Conference, a nonprofit organization bringing together people in the field of live entertainment to discuss marketing, publicity, and sales trends. Find out more at eventarenamarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.